Good morning, dear Sangha. Today is June the 8th, the year 2006, and we are in the Từ Nghiêm Loving Kindness Temple of New Hamlet during our 21-day retreat, the breath of the Buddha. Yesterday we spoke of impermanence, of non-desire. And today we speak of throwing away. Throwing away. Throwing away is a wonderful practice. Mind object and perceptions. The first exercise contemplating impermanence. I breathe in. Contemplating impermanence, I breathe out. Quán vô thường. The 14. Contemplating throwing away. I breathe in, I breathe out. The 5th, non-desire. And the 16th, cessation. In the Pali Canon, this is also the 13th, but the 14th is non-desire. And 15 is throwing away, and the 16 is cessation. It is interesting to note that in the Chinese version, the practice of throwing away is the one that follows right after impermanence. And the question you might like to ask is to throwing away what? What is to be thrown away? We are in the field of perception. And we have learned that wrong perceptions are the ground of all afflictions. Fear, anger, discrimination, despair. All these kind of afflictions are born from wrong perceptions. So we know, it's easy to know that throwing away here means to throw away wrong perceptions, ideas, notions that are at the base of our suffering. It is the most important practice in Buddhist meditation. You have an idea and you entertain that idea for a long time and you continue to suffer. Suppose a country entertain the idea, an idea about what is the best way to bring the country to make the country into a superpower. And that is a collective idea of the country. It's a certain kind of ideology that you embrace, and you think that is the only way to make your nation into the most powerful nation. Of course, we have individual idea of what should be our happiness. Every one of us entertain an idea about happiness. It may be that because of that idea of happiness, but we have never been happy. So it's very important to throw away that notion of happiness, that idea of happiness that we have entertained. So a nation is a community of people, and they may entertain together one idea, one ideology. Each political party, the Socialist Party, for instance, each party entertain an idea. And we might be caught in that idea. We never succeed into realizing our aim. So an ideology may be a trap. That your nation may be caught in it during 60, 70 years. And during that time, you create a lot of suffering. Those who do not agree with that ideology, you put them in psychiatric hospitals. And the moment when you release that idea, happiness begins to be possible. So throwing away is very important. And it takes insight, it takes courage in order to throw away an idea. If we have suffered, that might be because we have entertained one idea we are not able to release. So throwing away is the word. It's very strong. It's not just letting go. The Sanskrit, the Pali term is throwing away in a very strong way. And the Vietnamese meditation master Tăng Hội, he also used the word phóng khí, throw away, phóng khí. Tăng Hội is the first teacher of meditation in Vietnam. He lived in the beginning, in the first half of the 3rd century. We have a book written on his life and his teaching. He is considered to be the first teacher of meditation in Vietnam and also in China, because he went to China during the first half of the 3rd century, and in China at that time there was no Buddhist monk. It was him who ordained the first Buddhist monks in China. He used the word phóng, to throw, throw away. You may have studied the Diamond Sutra. The Diamond Sutra advises us to throw away 4 notions. And the first notion is the notion of self. It is by intensive training that you can throw away the notion of self. If a couple know how to live in the spirit of non-self, there will be no difficulty, no anger, no discrimination, no despair, because they have realized the truth of non-self. If father and son, mother and daughter have the insight of no self, they look at each other as interbeing, and then there will be no problem. If the north and the south realize that they inter-are, and then there will be no problem. They will be like brothers and sisters. There is the idea that I am this body. This body is me. This body is mine, belong to me. I am this body. This body belongs to me. And this is a notion that does not correspond to reality. When you pronounce the word I am, we pronounce it on the ground of that notion, I am. And still people do not believe very much in that statement. That is why they try to justify it with a kind of argument. Like René Descartes, in order to demonstrate that I am is a reality, he said, I think, therefore I am. I am. I remember one day I saw a cartoon picturing Descartes touching a horse, and he declared, I think that, therefore I am. And the horse asked back, you are what? That is a good question. If you can answer what you are, and then you may have a better idea that is closer to reality. When we look deeply, when the father looked deeply at himself, when the son looked deeply at his father, if they look like that, they see that they inter-are. The father is at the same time the son, and the son is at the same time the father. So a better statement is, I inter-am. I inter-am. It's closer to the truth in the light of interconnectedness, in the light of interbeing in the light of interdependent origination. We see that the rose is made only of non-rose elements. We see that Buddhism is made only of non-Buddhist elements. So we are free. When you are able to see that Buddhism is made of non-Buddhist elements, you have a lot of tolerance, you have a lot of openness, and you follow the line of inclusiveness. There is no religious war, there is no discrimination, and you are truly Buddhist because you have that. You are based on that right view, and that right view is there is no self, there is no separate entity called self. So I into am is closer to the truth, and we know that. I am like this because you are like that. And in the scripture, it is written, this is because that is. And this is a statement about interbeing. If you are not there, I cannot be here. So it's very important to throw away the notion I am, the notion self, because it does not reflect the truth. And by looking deeply into the nature of reality, you are capable of throwing away that notion of I am. The second notion that the Diamond Sutra advises us to throw away is the notion man, human being. And this is not something too difficult. When we look into the human being, we see human ancestors, we see animal ancestors, we see vegetable ancestors, we see mineral ancestors. And we see that the human is made of the non-human elements. We see that we are at the same time a rock, a river, a cloud, a squirrel, a rose. And if we take away all the non-human elements, the human being is no longer there. And this is the deepest teaching on deep ecology. In order to protect the human being, you have to protect elements that are not human. Because these elements are our ancestors. And if you destroy our ancestors, there's no way that we can be there. That is why discrimination between man and nature, that is a wrong view. You have to see you as nature, one with nature. And you have to respect life in all its form. And that is why harmony, respect of life is possible. So throw away the idea that human is the boss, the man is the boss, man can do anything to nature. And the key is contemplation on impermanence of no self. The first is the notion of self to be thrown away. The second is the notion of man. With that kind of liberation, we become less proud, less arrogant as a species. We know that we have to respect other species. We have to protect them in order for us to have a chance. And that is why I always said that Diamond Sutra is the oldest text on deep ecology. The third notion is the notion of living beings. When we pronounce the word living beings, we want to distinguish living beings with non-living beings. We mean animals, humans and animals. But we know very well that looking deeply into living beings, we see elements that could be called non-living beings. The vegetable, the minerals. And looking deeply, we can see that vegetables and minerals, they are alive also. So there is no real frontier separating human beings and non-human beings. We have the notion of matière inerte, la matière inerte. But if you look deeply into that notion, that matter is something without soul, without life, we see that is not true. First of all, matter is the object of our perception. And for a long time, we have believed that matter exists as a separate entity. And matter is something that does not move. But now, as science advances, we see that matter is not static, immobile, like we have thought. In fact, the atoms, the atoms, they move a lot. They are very alive. And looking more deeply, we see a lot of our mind in it. And we are not sure that they are there like the way we have imagined. So the distinction between living being and non-living beings disappear, removed after meditation. No longer any discrimination. And the fourth notion to be thrown away is the notion of lifespan. We believe that there is time, the course of time, and we are born at one point of time. Our birth begins here, and we shall die at another point of time, death. So our life only begins here and ends here, lifespan. And most of us believe believe that. I only spend 70, 80, 90, or 100 years on this planet. After that, I be gone. We believe like that. But as we look deeply, we see that this is a notion, a wrong perception. Birth is a notion, and death is also a notion. It's not reality. The other day we spoke of the deathlessness of a cloud. A cloud can never die. It can only become rain or snow, etc. In our mind, to die means from something you become nothing. From someone you become no one. And if you look deeply, you don't see anything like that. A cloud can never die. When you burn a piece of paper, that piece of paper is transformed into smoke, heat, ash. The piece of paper cannot be reduced to nothingness. So the idea of annihilation is just an idea. You cannot annihilate anything. And if we look deeply, we see that the nature of the cloud is also the nature of no birth. Because in our mind, to be born is from nothing, you become something. From no one, you suddenly become someone. The cloud does not come from nothing. It has come from the water, in the river, in the ocean. It has come from the sunshine, the heat. And we know that the birth of a cloud is a poetic image. It is a new manifestation. Before being a cloud, the cloud has been many other things. So to say that from here to here is being, and from here back is non-being, and from here on is non-being. So we believe that from non-being we become being, and from being we become non-being. And that is a notion to be thrown away. Thrown away. Our true nature is nature of no birth and no death. Birth and death are notions that cannot be applied to reality. Because nothing can be born from nothing, and nothing can become nothing at all. And this meditation, this practice of looking deeply, will bring about insight. They will dissipate our fear, our despair. So that is the four notions, four basic notions that are at the foundation of our fear, our discrimination, our suffering. And that is why the Diamond Sutra advise us to practice looking deeply so that we can throw them away. So the first notion to be thrown away is the notion of self. Satkaya Dristi, thân kiến. The view that this body is me, this body belongs to me. I am this body is me. The second notion to be thrown away is the pairs of extremes called biên kiến. Like birth and death, coming and going, sameness, otherness, being and non-being. Eternity, eternalism, and annihilation. There are those of us who believe in an immortal soul. And after the disintegration of this body, that immortal soul continues to live on. Does not change. In Buddhism, we speak of consciousness in terms of feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. And we know that everything is changing. This is a flow. This is a process rather than a thing and something solid. And we don't see anything as permanent, because impermanence is the object of our looking deeply. Nothing is impermanent. So the notion that there is an immortal soul that remains itself forever and ever is a wrong view called eternalism, thường kiến. Thường kiến. The view of eternalism. And the opposite view, the other extreme is đoạn kiến, annihilation. Something may disappear forever. After we die, nothing is left. Absolutely nothing is left. That is another extreme. That is a wrong view. And we should not be caught in one extreme or another extreme. When Lavoisier looked deeply at matter and energy, he was able to see that nothing is born, nothing dies. rien ne se crée, rien ne se perd. And that statement of his, rien ne se crée, rien ne se perd, coincide with what we read in the Heart Sutra, bất sinh bất diệt, no birth and no death. So birth and death are also another pair of extremes. And looking deeply, we will be able to throw away the notion of birth and death. We have used the image of a cloud in order to practice looking deeply. Anything like a rose, a squirrel, a river, if anything is like that, is the nature of no birth and no death. The demonstration of coming and going when we invite the flame to manifest, you might like to ask the flame, dear little flame, where have you come from? And when the flame is no longer there, you may like to ask the flame, dear little flame, where have you gone? We have the notion of coming and going. To meditate means to listen deeply to the flame. After having asked the question, dear flame, where have you been? Where have you come from? Dear flame, where have you gone? And looking deeply, practicing meditation, you will hear the voice of the flame telling you, dear Thầy, dear Sangha, I have come from nowhere. I have not come from the south, from the north, from the east, from the west. When conditions come together, I manifest. This is not birth, this is a manifestation. And we know that the flame is right. Her nature is the nature of no coming. When conditions come together and then she manifests, she has not come from any directions. So coming is a notion. Going is another notion. Dear little flame, where have you gone? And you listen to the flame, and you hear, dear Thầy, dear Sangha, I have gone nowhere. I have not gone to the south, neither to the north. When conditions are no longer sufficient, I cease my manifestation. My nature is no going, no coming, no going. So the notion of coming and going also are notions to be thrown away. When a being that is so dear to us ceases to manifest in a way she used to, we want to ask, beloved one, where are you now? Where have you gone? And if you listen carefully, she will tell you that she has not gone anywhere. She is still there somehow. And if you have the eyes of a Buddha, the eyes of a practitioner, you can still recognize her in her new manifestations. Because nothing is lost. Rien ne se perd. When you open the album, family album, you might see yourself, the image of yourself when you were 5 years old. Now you are 30 or 40. And you might like to ask, am I the same with that little girl? Am I the same person with that little boy? And the good answer is that, well, I am neither the same with that little boy, but I am not a different person either. Several years ago in a retreat in northern Germany, we married a couple. And the next morning, the couple was asked to come up to report on us on the teaching of no coming, no going, neither the same nor a different one. And the young man looked at her bride and asked this question, "Darling, are you the same person I married yesterday, or are you a different one?" Because things are impermanent, you know. Nothing can remain the same in 2 consecutive days. So when you love, you worry a little bit. You worry that the other person might no longer love you. So you want to be assured all the time that she still loves you. So since the day before, they have heard about impermanence. They have agreed that things are impermanent, and people also, the mind is impermanent. So there is a ground for the young husband to ask his wife that question, "Darling, are you the same person I married yesterday?" And the lady looked at him, the young lady looked at him smiling and said, "Don't worry, my dear. Although I am not exactly the same person you married yesterday, but I am not a different person either." That is the truth. So the notion of sameness should be thrown away. The notion of otherness should be thrown away. Because if we have succeeded in the contemplation of impermanence, we cannot entertain the notion of eternity, eternalism. And that is why we can stay on the middle path. On the middle path means you are free from extremes, from notions, from pair of opposites. Pair of opposites. Now let us try to look